6:15 a.m., Chicago O'Hare Terminal 3. TSA Agent Rodriguez's fingernails dig into bronze metal as she tries ripping it from an 82-year-old man's chest. "Remove this fake military garbage," she snarls, pulling harder at the small bronze star. But Robert Mitchell doesn't scream, doesn't fight back, just stands there with impossible calm while she attacks what she calls costume jewelry from Amazon. 30 feet away, Colonel Sarah Hayes drops her boarding pass. That ribbon pattern, that bronze star, that man's military bearing under assault. Holy God, she thinks. That can't be. "Remove it now!" Rodriguez yanks so hard Mitchell stumbles backward into the metal detector. But Hayes knows. She knows what she's seeing. And in 30 seconds, she's going to do something that will turn this terminal upside down. Because what's pinned to that old man's cardigan isn't costume jewelry. It's America's highest military honor. And Rodriguez just made the biggest mistake of her life. The morning rush swirls around checkpoint B7 as passengers shuffle through security, most barely glancing at the elderly man being harassed by TSA. Coffee cups steam, phones buzz with notifications, and the automated voice drones about liquid restrictions. But Colonel Sarah Hayes, 48, retired Air Force and military historian, can't look away. She's flying to Washington for a Pentagon conference on military honors. Her carry-on contains research files on Medal of Honor recipients from Vietnam. And standing 30 feet away is a man whose calm under pressure screams, "Military training." "Sir, I said remove the jewelry," Rodriguez repeats, her voice rising above the terminal noise. "Ma'am, with respect, this metal doesn't come off," Mitchell responds, his voice carrying decades of military courtesy. "It's pinned to the fabric." Hayes watches his posture, feet slightly apart, shoulders back even under stress. The way he addresses Rodriguez as ma'am, despite her aggression. The protective stance over that small bronze star. That's not costume jewelry, Hayes realizes, her pulse quickening. Rodriguez grabs her radio. "Security to checkpoint B7, uncooperative passenger refusing to comply with metal removal protocols." Above them, the rotating digital display shows a quote, "In honor of those who served." The irony makes Hayes's jaw clench. What Rodriguez doesn't understand is that she's about to humiliate a man whose courage saved lives. What she doesn't see is the military expert watching every move, building a case that will expose her ignorance to the entire nation. The bronze star catches the terminal lighting again as Rodriguez reaches for it. Hayes notices the specific details, the light blue ribbon with white stars, the wear patterns that only come from decades of reverent handling, the slight discoloration that marks authentic vintage pieces. Her master's thesis at the Air War College focused on Vietnam War heroism. She's studied every Medal of Honor recipient from that era. And something about this man, this medal, is triggering recognition deep in her trained mind. Mitchell's hands shake slightly as he tries to protect the medal, not from fear, but from age and the weight of protecting something sacred. "Please don't touch it," he whispers, so quietly only Hayes and the closest passengers can hear. "It was my son's final gift before Afghanistan." Hayes's breath catches. A Medal of Honor passed between generations. A father traveling to honor a fallen son, and TSA treating it like airport gift shop merchandise. The woman can't stand silent any longer. If you believe our veterans deserve respect, type "respect" in the comments. What happens next will shock the entire terminal. Colonel Hayes steps out of the pre-check line, her military bearing impossible to hide even in civilian clothes. 28 years of service carved discipline into her very walk. "Excuse me," she calls out, her voice carrying the authority of someone who once commanded fighter squadrons. Rodriguez turns, irritated. "Ma'am, please return to your line. This is a security matter." "I can see that," Hayes replies, studying Mitchell's medal with professional interest. "What exactly seems to be the problem?" "Passenger refuses to remove costume jewelry," Rodriguez explains dismissively. "Claims it doesn't come off. I see fake military gear every day." Hayes moves closer, her trained eye examining every detail of the medal. The bronze star suspended from that distinctive light blue ribbon. the intricate metalwork that couldn't be replicated in cheap knockoffs, the natural wear patterns from decades of careful handling. This is real, she realizes with growing certainty. Ma'am, I need to ask you to step back, Rodriguez continues, reaching again for Mitchell's medal. Security protocols. Stop. Hayes's command voice cuts through the terminal noise like a blade. Don't touch that medal. Rodriguez pauses, confused by the authority in Hayes's tone. Around them, passengers begin to notice the tension. A businessman lowers his phone. A mother traveling with children looks up from her stroller. Hayes pulls out her military ID, her movements deliberate and professional. Colonel Sarah Hayes, United States Air Force, retired. That's not costume jewelry you're handling. Mitchell looks up, surprise flickering across his weathered features. Recognition passes between two people who've served their country. Colonel, he says quietly, straightening slightly. Robert Mitchell, Army, retired. Hayes nods respectfully, then turns back to Rodriguez, whose confidence is beginning to waver. That ribbon pattern, Hayes explains, her voice carrying to nearby passengers, light blue with white stars, that's specific to one decoration. The bronze star design with those exact proportions. The way it's worn, with absolute reverence. She points to details that only an expert would notice. See how the ribbon shows natural aging? The bronze has that specific patina that develops over decades. The way Mr. Mitchell protects it, that's not how someone handles fake jewelry. Rodriguez's face shows the first flicker of uncertainty. Ma'am, with respect, I've been trained to recognize military decorations? Hayes interrupts. Because what you're calling costume jewelry appears to be the Medal of Honor. The words hang in the air like a detonated bomb. Passengers within earshot freeze. The businessman starts recording on his phone. The mother whispers to her children to watch quietly, but Rodriguez shakes her head dismissively. Ma'am, you can buy those medals online for $20. I see this stuff constantly. Hayes's expression hardens. She spent her career studying military honors, writing about the heroes who earned them, and she's watching one of those heroes be humiliated by someone who doesn't understand what she's attacking. Supervisor, Rodriguez calls on her radio. I need backup at checkpoint B7, civilian interference with security protocols. Hayes exchanges a glance with Mitchell, who stands with quiet dignity despite the escalating confrontation. His calm in the face of ignorance speaks volumes about his character. What Rodriguez doesn't understand is that she just called for backup against someone who knows exactly what she's looking at, someone who's studied the stories behind every Medal of Honor awarded in Vietnam. And Hayes is about to make sure everyone in Terminal 3 understands the magnitude of Rodriguez's mistake. The digital display rotates to show an image of Arlington National Cemetery, caption reading, "Honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice." The irony is becoming unbearable. Supervisor Mark Stevens approaches with the brisk walk of middle management, clipboard in hand and authority radiating from his pressed uniform. What's the situation here? He demands, looking between Rodriguez, Hayes, and Mitchell. Passenger refusing to comply with jewelry removal, Rodriguez reports quickly. Military woman interfering with protocols, claiming this is some kind of special medal. Stevens glances at Mitchell's bronze star dismissively. Sir, TSA regulations are clear. All metal objects must be removed for X-ray screening. No exceptions. Hayes steps forward, her military posture commanding attention. Supervisor, I'm Colonel Sarah Hayes, retired Air Force. What you're looking at isn't ordinary jewelry. It's the Medal of Honor. Stevens pauses, uncertainty flickering across his face. The name carries weight. Everyone knows what the Medal of Honor represents, even if they've never seen one. Ma'am, respectfully, we can't make exceptions based on claims about... It's not a claim, Hayes interrupts firmly. It's an identification. I've spent 15 years studying military decorations. That ribbon pattern, that bronze star design, they're specific to America's highest military honor. Around them, more passengers are gathering, phones appearing as the confrontation draws attention. The businessman who started recording has moved closer. Other travelers are whispering, pointing at Mitchell's medal. Stevens looks uncomfortable with the growing audience but maintains his bureaucratic stance. Sir, he addresses Mitchell. If this is truly a military decoration of significance, we can arrange for alternative screening. Alternative screening? Hayes's voice rises with indignation. You're talking about the Medal of Honor. There are only 3,500 living recipients in the entire United States. This man earned the right to wear that medal with honor and dignity, not be subjected to security theater. Mitchell remains calm throughout the exchange, his hands still protective over the medal. Colonel, I appreciate your support, but I understand they have procedures. No. Hayes cuts him off gently but firmly. Some things transcend procedures. Some sacrifices demand respect. Stevens, feeling the pressure of the growing crowd and Hayes's military authority, calls for additional backup. Security Chief Walsh to checkpoint B7. I need guidance on military decoration protocols. Hayes watches him make the call with growing frustration. Each level of bureaucracy brings another person who doesn't understand what they're dealing with. Another layer of ignorance wrapped in official protocol. But she also sees opportunity. Each new authority figure means another chance to educate, another platform to explain what that small bronze star represents. The crowd continues growing. Gate announcements echo through the terminal, but people are choosing to watch this confrontation instead of rushing to their flights. Word is spreading that something significant is happening at checkpoint B7. Mitchell glances around at all the attention, clearly uncomfortable with being the center of such focus. But Hayes notices something else in his expression. Gratitude, relief that someone finally understands what he's carrying. Mr. Mitchell, Hayes says quietly, just loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Would you mind telling us about your service? It's a strategic question. Not asking about the medal directly, but opening the door for him to share his story if he chooses. Mitchell looks at her thoughtfully, then at the growing crowd of passengers and TSA personnel. His decision to speak or remain silent will determine whether this becomes a teaching moment or continues as bureaucratic harassment. The terminal holds its breath, waiting for a hero to tell his story. Security Chief Janet Walsh arrives with the no-nonsense bearing of someone who's dealt with every airport crisis imaginable. She surveys the scene, the growing crowd, the recording phones, the tension between TSA and military authority. Supervisor Stevens, status report, she demands. Passenger compliance issue with jewelry removal, Stevens explains quickly. Military consultant claims special significance, but protocols require... I'm not a consultant, Hayes interrupts sharply. I'm a retired Air Force colonel and military historian, and that's not jewelry, it's the Medal of Honor. Walsh's expression shifts slightly. Unlike Stevens and Rodriguez, she understands the weight of those words. The Medal of Honor isn't just another military decoration, it's the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. Sir, Walsh addresses Mitchell directly, I apologize for any confusion. If you're a Medal of Honor recipient, we have specific protocols for honoring our nation's heroes. No protocols necessary, Mitchell replies quietly. I just want to catch my flight to Washington. I'm already late for my son's memorial dedication at Arlington. The words hit the growing crowd like a physical blow. A Medal of Honor recipient traveling to honor his fallen son. A hero being harassed while trying to pay respects to another hero. Hayes closes her eyes briefly, the full picture becoming clear. This isn't just about TSA ignorance. It's about a father's grief being weaponized by bureaucratic indifference. Ma'am, she addresses Walsh, her voice carrying to every phone recording the scene. Mr. Mitchell earned that medal through extraordinary courage in combat. He's traveling to honor his son who died serving our country in Afghanistan. And your staff has spent the last 10 minutes treating him like a criminal. Walsh looks around at the crowd, the cameras, the potential PR nightmare developing in real time. But before she can respond, her radio crackles with another voice. Security Chief Walsh, this is Federal Security Director Bradley. I'm en route to checkpoint B7. Do not let that situation escalate further. The mention of federal involvement sends a ripple through the crowd. Passengers exchange glances. How significant is this confrontation if federal authorities are getting involved? Hayes recognizes the moment for what it is, the calm before the storm. She's about to expose not just TSA ignorance, but institutional failure to recognize and honor military sacrifice. Mitchell seems to sense it too. He straightens slightly, his military bearing more pronounced despite his age. Whatever happens next, he's ready to face it with the same courage that earned him that medal decades ago. Rodriguez, realizing that the situation has spiraled far beyond her authority, tries to salvage her position. "Ma'am, I was just following standard security protocols. I had no way of knowing." "You had every way of knowing." Hayes cuts her off, her voice carrying across the terminal. "That medal is distinctive. That man's bearing screams military service. His respect for the medal itself should have told you everything you needed to know." The crowd murmurs agreement. Passengers are nodding, some wiping their eyes as the full story becomes clear. Federal Security Director Bradley's footsteps echo across the terminal floor as he approaches. This is the highest civilian authority available, the final arbitrator before military authority takes precedence. But Hayes knows something that Bradley, Walsh, Stevens, and Rodriguez don't know yet. She knows exactly who Robert Mitchell is. She knows the story behind his Medal of Honor. She knows why his name should be familiar to anyone who studies military heroism. And she's about to make sure everyone else knows too. The terminal holds its collective breath as federal authority prepares to confront military honor. The federal director is about to learn exactly who he's dealing with. What happens next made national news. Federal Security Director Tom Bradley strides into checkpoint B7 with the authority of someone accustomed to resolving crises. His gaze takes in the crowd, the cameras, the tension between TSA staff, and the military woman defending an elderly passenger. "I'm Director Bradley, Federal Oversight for O'Hare Security Operations," he announces. What exactly is the nature of this disturbance? Before anyone else can speak, Hayes steps forward. Her military bearing matches his federal authority, creating a fascinating clash of jurisdictions. "Director Bradley, I'm Colonel Sarah Hayes, retired Air Force. Your TSA staff has been harassing Mr. Robert Mitchell, a Medal of Honor recipient, demanding he remove his military decoration for screening." Bradley's expression immediately changes. The Medal of Honor isn't just another piece of military hardware, it's protected by federal law, revered by military and civilian leadership alike. "Mr. Mitchell," Bradley addresses him with visible respect, "I sincerely apologize for any inconvenience. We have specific protocols for Medal of Honor recipients that clearly weren't followed here." But Hayes isn't finished. She's been building to this moment, gathering evidence, preparing to educate not just the authorities but everyone recording this scene. "Director Bradley, with your permission, I'd like to explain exactly who Mr. Mitchell is. Because what happened here today represents more than just a protocol failure. It's institutional ignorance of American heroism." Bradley nods, recognizing the gravity of the situation and the opportunity for education. Hayes turns to address both the authorities and the crowd, her voice carrying the weight of military history. "Robert Mitchell earned the Medal of Honor on April 15, 1969, during Operation Thunder Ridge in Vietnam. When his platoon was ambushed and pinned down by enemy fire, Lieutenant Mitchell single-handedly assaulted 3 enemy positions to rescue 8 wounded soldiers and 4 Vietnamese civilians." The terminal falls completely silent. Every conversation stops, every phone call ends, every passenger within hearing distance focuses on Hayes's words. He was shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the leg. Shrapnel from a mortar round embedded in his back, but he refused evacuation until every wounded soldier was safely extracted. Hayes pauses, letting the weight of those words settle over the crowd. 8 American families got their sons home because of Robert Mitchell's courage. 4 Vietnamese families survived because he chose to risk his life for strangers. That small bronze star represents 6 hours of combat where he chose other people's lives over his own safety. Mitchell stands quietly, clearly uncomfortable with the attention but maintaining his dignity as Hayes tells his story. "The medal was presented by President Nixon in a White House ceremony," Hayes continues. "But more importantly to Mr. Mitchell, it was blessed by his wife before every trip they took together. She would touch that bronze star and whisper, 'Bring my hero home safe.' Her voice softens with empathy. Mrs. Mitchell passed away last year. That medal carries not just military honor, but the blessing of a Gold Star wife who lost her son in Afghanistan and her husband to cancer 6 months later. The crowd is completely silent now. Several passengers are wiping tears. The TSA staff looks stricken as they realize the magnitude of their mistake. Mr. Mitchell is traveling to Washington today for the dedication of his son's memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. Staff Sergeant David Mitchell killed by an IED while delivering medical supplies to an Afghan village. Hayes turns back to Rodriguez, her voice carrying both authority and profound disappointment. So when you called his Medal of Honor fake military garbage, you weren't just insulting a piece of metal. You were disrespecting the memory of 8 soldiers whose lives he saved, 4 civilians he protected, a wife who blessed his travels, and a son who died serving the same country that just humiliated his father. Rodriguez looks like she wants to disappear. Stevens stares at the floor. Even Walsh appears shaken by the revelation. But Hayes isn't finished. She's about to reveal the final layer that will make this moment unforgettable. Director Bradley, there's something else you should know about Mr. Mitchell's service record. Hayes reaches into her carry-on bag and pulls out a folder thick with research papers, her preparation for the Pentagon Conference on Military Honors. Mr. Mitchell's Medal of Honor citation, she announces, opening the folder to a specific page, reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty." She reads directly from the official document, her voice carrying to every corner of the checkpoint area. When his platoon came under intense enemy fire resulting in numerous casualties, Lieutenant Mitchell repeatedly exposed himself to enemy fire to rescue wounded soldiers. Despite being wounded twice, he continued his rescue efforts for over 6 hours, refusing medical evacuation until all wounded personnel were evacuated. The crowd listens in absolute silence as Hayes continues reading the citation. His extraordinary heroism and selfless devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. She closes the folder and looks around at the assembled crowd, TSA staff, and federal authorities. What makes Mr. Mitchell's story even more remarkable is that Operation Thunder Ridge was classified for 30 years. The full details of his heroism weren't made public until 1999. For 3 decades, he couldn't even tell his own family the complete story of how he earned that medal. Bradley steps forward, clearly moved by the revelation. "Mr. Mitchell, on behalf of the federal government and TSA, I offer our deepest apologies. This should never have happened." But Mitchell shakes his head gently. "Director, I don't need apologies. These folks were doing their jobs as they understood them. What I need is to catch my 8:30 flight so I can be in Washington when they dedicate my son's memorial." Hayes checks her watch. "It's already 7:45. Mr. Mitchell has been delayed here for over an hour because TSA couldn't recognize America's highest military honor. The weight of that statement settles over everyone present. A Medal of Honor recipient, traveling to honor his fallen son, nearly missing the memorial dedication because of security theater." Bradley immediately pulls out his radio. "All TSA supervisors, this is Director Bradley. Immediate protocol update. Any passenger displaying military decorations, especially Medal of Honor recipients, are to be treated with highest respect and priority processing." He turns to Mitchell. "Sir, we're going to escort you directly to your gate. VIP transport, no further delays." But the crowd isn't ready to let this moment end. Someone in the back starts clapping. Others join in. Within seconds, the entire checkpoint area erupts in sustained applause. Passengers stand. TSA agents abandon their posts to applaud. Gate agents lean over their counters to see what's happening. Even janitors stop their work to show respect. Mitchell looks around, clearly overwhelmed by the recognition. This is what Hayes wanted. Not just an apology from authorities, but public acknowledgement of his service and sacrifice. "Thank you," Mitchell says quietly, his voice barely audible over the applause. "But please, there's no need for this. I was just doing my job." Hayes steps beside him, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "Mr. Mitchell, The job you did saved 8 American lives and protected 4 innocent civilians. The job you did represents the highest ideals of military service. The job you did earned you a place among the most honored heroes in American history. The applause intensifies. Passengers are recording every moment, sharing it on social media in real time. Within hours, this scene will be viewed millions of times across every platform. But for Hayes, the most important moment comes when she sees Rodriguez step forward, tears in her eyes. "Mr. Mitchell," Rodriguez says, her voice shaking, "I am so sorry. I had no idea. I didn't understand." Mitchell turns to her with the same grace he's shown throughout the entire ordeal. "Ma'am, you were protecting passengers, following your training. That takes courage, too. I hold no grudge against anyone here." The forgiveness in his voice, the dignity he maintains even towards someone who humiliated him, speaks volumes about his character. Hayes smiles, knowing that this moment, this grace under pressure, is exactly why some people earn medals while others simply wear uniforms. As VIP transport whisks Mitchell toward his gate, Hayes remains at the checkpoint to witness the aftermath of education meeting ignorance. Director Bradley gathers his TSA staff for an immediate debrief. "What happened here today was unacceptable," he announces. "Every employee will undergo mandatory training on military decorations, with special emphasis on Medal of Honor recognition." He points to the "Honoring Our Heroes" display that had rotated messages throughout Mitchell's harassment. Those aren't just empty words. They represent our commitment to the people who served our country. Today we failed that commitment. Rodriguez approaches Hayes, still visibly shaken. "Ma'am, I need to understand. How could I have recognized what that medal was?" Hayes appreciates the question. It shows genuine desire to learn rather than defensiveness. "The ribbon pattern is distinctive," Hayes explains patiently. "Light blue with white stars appears only on the Medal of Honor. The bronze star design has specific proportions, but more importantly, watch how veterans carry themselves. Mr. Mitchell's bearing, his respect for the medal, his grace under pressure, those are earned through service." She pulls out her phone, showing Rodriguez images from her research. "This is what a Medal of Honor looks like new, fresh from the manufacturer. This is what it looks like after 40 years of reverent care." The differences tell a story. Other TSA agents gather around, genuinely interested in learning. Hayes realizes this confrontation has created an opportunity for systemic change. "How many Medal of Honor recipients travel through O'Hare?" asks Supervisor Stevens. "More than you might think," Hayes replies. "Chicago is a major hub. Veterans travel for reunions, memorial services, family visits. Some are elderly, like Mr. Mitchell. Others are younger from Iraq and Afghanistan. All of them deserve recognition, not harassment." Bradley joins the conversation. "Colonel Hayes, would you be willing to conduct formal training for our staff? Help us develop protocols that honor military service while maintaining security?" Hayes considers the offer. This morning, she was simply traveling to a conference. Now she has the chance to ensure no other veteran faces what Mitchell endured. "I'd be honored to help," she agrees. "But I want to start with Mr. Mitchell's story. Every TSA agent should know what happened here today and why it can never happen again." As the crowd disperses and normal checkpoint operations resume, Hayes notices something different in how TSA agents interact with passengers. More courtesy, more attention to detail, more awareness that every person has a story worth respecting. Her phone buzzes with notifications. The video of Mitchell's story is already viral, shared thousands of times with comments pouring in from veterans, military families, and civilians moved by his dignity under pressure. One comment catches her attention. "My grandfather was at Operation Thunder Ridge. He always talked about the lieutenant who saved everyone. Now I know his name." Another, "Flying through O'Hare next week wearing my Purple Heart, thanks to Colin Hayes for showing us how to demand respect." And another, "TSA agent here in Denver. Just completed emergency training on military decorations." Mr. Mitchell's story is now part of our required education. Hayes smiles, realizing that Mitchell's harassment has sparked a national conversation about how we treat our veterans. His quiet dignity in the face of ignorance has become a teaching moment that will protect other heroes from similar treatment. The morning sun streams through Terminal 3's massive windows as Hayes boards her own flight to Washington. She knows that when she arrives, she'll be attending not just a Pentagon conference, but Robert Mitchell's son's memorial dedication. Some meetings are planned, others are divinely appointed. This morning, ignorance met heroism and lost. Bureaucracy met dignity and learned. Authority met valor and was humbled. And somewhere over Lake Michigan, a Medal of Honor recipient finally travels in peace toward a son's memorial, carrying the blessings of a nation that took too long to recognize his worth. Thank you for typing respect. Subscribe for more stories where dignity triumphs over ignorance. Support our mission through Buy Me a Coffee, link in the first pinned comment. Until next time, honor never fades. Sometimes it takes a colonel to teach a terminal what respect looks like. Sometimes it takes a hero's grace to show us what dignity means. And sometimes it takes one moment of recognition to change everything.